Hi, today I'm going to talk to you about homeowners associations. My name is Ricardo Rangel Jr. I'm a realtor licensed in the state of Iowa, and I want to clear up some confusion about what is an HOA, what it does, what it doesn't do. And this was inspired by seeing videos online of people having horror stories with homeowners associations and the comment section saying things like, I will never live in an HOA, HOAs are the worst. And they can be good, they can be bad, but I just wanted to clear the air on some things. So, what is an HOA? An HOA, aka a homeowners association, is an agreement basically between the owners of property. And this agreement can include things such as, well, it's a document, right? It's like a 40 plus page document that is public record. You can search this wherever you are. And this says, okay, these are the units, these are the addresses of the units, this is what they look like. They could be in a 12-plex building, they could be townhouses or row houses, they could be detached houses. It doesn't matter the style of construction. The fact that what matters is that there's a document saying there's an association with rules and regulations that preside over these properties. So it'll say what those properties are, what they look like, and what the directions are for organizing it. So for example, it'll say this HOA shall be regulated by a board of directors. A board is the norm, and this board shall include X number of members, depends on the size. They shall meet whenever, quarterly, annually, and it's the rules of the game basically. So it'll say all those things. So it will specify the members, who they are, and what percentage of the buildings they own. Everyone owns the inside of their building. One thing that HOAs do is they designate, okay, if say it's a 100 unit HOA, for example, every unit will own 1% of the common elements. What are the common elements? Well, think of green areas, or if you're like in a 12-plex building, the hallways and everything that services the entrances to the doors. It could be a pool. It could be a basketball court or a tennis court, or anything that is used or shared by everybody is a common element. Normally, you as an owner will own a percentage of that proportionate to the number of units. Another thing that this document does is it outlines the rules and regulations. So what is an example of that? A very common one is pet restrictions. It'll say every owner can have up to X number of pets, specifying even sizes and weights. It'll say things like you can't have commercial farms here. Another common rule can be a rental restriction. Some HOAs require every unit to be owner occupied. Some HOAs allow for rentals. Some HOAs allow for rentals, but not short-term rentals, so you couldn't do like an Airbnb. And then of course they can rule on what the exterior of your unit can look like, because typically you can do anything that is allowed by the code inside your house. You can paint it, you can remodel it, you can knock down walls, you can put up walls as long as you're not damaging the structural integrity of the building, right? Assuming you share walls. You can do anything inside the shell of the house. Anything outside is considered a common element. Sometimes the rules can say, they can tell you what materials, what styles, what colors you can use on the exterior. Sometimes they don't allow that at all. Now, an HOA is not to be confused with restrictive covenants. Typically, a brand new development will have covenants put in place by the developer. Now, the difference is that an HOA defines a board of directors that is in charge of enforcing and maintaining these rules. The covenants, you will answer to the developer or whoever is named on the covenants as the person in charge. Covenants expire. HOAs need to be dissolved. A lot of people who say that they don't want to live in an HOA because of the requirements, you can have similar requirements in a covenant. Some covenants I've seen don't allow, for example, trailers to be parked in front of your house. Some covenants don't allow certain materials or styles to be used on construction. Some covenants only allow certain types of fences, and they limit where those fences can go. So even without an HOA, if you have restricted covenants, you can still have the man telling you what to do with your property, right? Typically, when you're purchasing a property, you should know if they have covenants or HOA or both. Property can have both. If you're working with a professional, they should be able to tell you If you're buying directly from the owners, they should be able to tell you, a title attorney can tell you, because all these things are public record. Now, one of the horror stories that I've been seeing with HOAs are sudden dues hikes, right? HOAs, you pay a monthly due for maintenance of the property, for reserve funds, insurance, because HOAs carry a master insurance policy that covers the common elements and the exterior of buildings. Covenants do not. Covenants just, sometimes they'll maintain some green space, but it's not common element. You don't own a percentage of it. You're just responsible for some of that maintenance. With HOAs, you have some big budget responsibilities, like I said, insurance, maintenance, and that is where things sneak up on you. You know, the smallest HOA I've ever seen was a 3-unit HOA. That's tiny. They're responsible for all the expenses. There are HOAs with thousands of units out there. Now, insurance is a big issue right now because prices are skyrocketing, right? The risk is going up. Insurance companies are pulling out of entire states. Everyone needs insurance. The HOA rules and regulations and bylaws will say you must have insurance. So what do you do when your insurance premium is all of a sudden twice what it was 5 years ago? You have to pay it. And by you, I mean the owner of the HOA. So there's really no way out of that. That's the annoying part about HOAs. They provide some services, but you have to pay for them. So the financial responsibilities are another difference between HOAs and restrictive covenants. And there's something you need to be aware of, because that HOA monthly due can change based on the needs of the association. And again, the association is not some third party who is telling you what to do. It's someone who lives or owns property where you are. So they're right on the boat with you. Nobody is paying less or nothing unless it's agreed for some reason. Everyone is supposed to pay the same. Again, unless they own multiple properties or a larger percentage share of the units. And the insurance is just one example of that. Think of maintenance. For example, I live in an area where it snows. We have to clear the snow. It's in our regulations, and it's a liability to not clear the snow. We have to do it. We have to pay for it. We budget a certain amount to do that. We might use all of it in 1 year. We might use a portion of it. Depends on how much it snows, right? We have to mow the lawns. We have to landscape. Example, right now we have several dead trees that need to come down. They're becoming a risk. We have to pay for that. This is just a quick overview of what an HOA is. Hopefully it cleared up some questions you might have had or given you a better understanding. Some final thoughts on this. Typically, when you're buying a property, you are entitled to review the HOA rules. What I do with my clients is we get to review the rules and regulations, if we haven't already. We get to review the budget. Depending on what time of year it is, the budget for the next year may not even be out. It might be freshly approved. And we get to review the meeting minutes. Those 3 things are very important to know, because the last thing you want is to move into your place and then get a letter the next day that says, hey, your HOA dues are going up by this much tomorrow. That doesn't just happen overnight. The board has to meet, the board has to approve that. This is something that could be avoided if you do your due diligence when you're buying. Similar with restrictive covenants, but again, they seldom have meetings. If you get a notification, they may not even send it to the right place. So that's a little different. But with HOAs, you got to do a little more due diligence before moving in. Also, I will say HOAs apply to residential property and commercial property too. If you're buying into, say, a storage unit where there are 20 other storage units, chances are there's an HOA that takes care of the snow removal, landscaping if there is any, that kind of thing. Management sometimes too. Some HOAs require professional management for the association, and that can be a good thing because I'm telling you, I've seen some very poorly managed HOAs, and it's more of a burden than you might think. Not only for the current owners, for future owners, people who are trying to sell, people who are trying to get things dealt with. Sometimes these poorly managed HOAs will pay for things that they should not be paying for. And by they, I mean you, the owner, is paying for those things, right? So the best thing you can do is get involved. If you live in an HOA and you hate it, well, leave if you can, or join the conversation. You know, it's, again, I'm in an HOA. You have to pull teeth to get people to answer emails. It's like they don't care. And then the dues come up and they're like, oh, why wasn't I notified? Yes, you were. We tried to tell you 6 months ago. twice. So pay attention, know where you are, ask questions, talk to your neighbors. Anyway, that was a little rant. So hopefully now you know more about HOAs. Again, my name is Ricardo Rangel Jr. I'm in Iowa City, here to help.